The soft glow of the nightlight cast gentle shadows across Liam's bedroom as Jenny tucked her 8-year-old son into bed. It was a familiar routine, one they had shared countless times before. But tonight, something felt different. There was a tension in the air, a heaviness that Jenny couldn't quite place. As she smoothed Liam's favorite dinosaur-patterned comforter over his small frame, Jenny noticed his blue eyes were wide with an emotion she rarely saw there: fear. His little hand gripped hers tightly, as if afraid to let go. "Good night, sweetie," Jenny said softly, leaning down to place a kiss on Liam's forehead. "Sweet dreams." She was halfway to the door when Liam's quiet voice stopped her in her tracks. "Mom, he comes to my room at night." Jenny froze, her hand hovering over the doorknob. She turned slowly, her heart suddenly racing. "Who comes to your room, Liam?" In the dim light, she saw Liam's lower lip tremble. "I don't know," he whispered, "but he scares me." Jenny's mind whirled with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. She forced herself to take a deep breath, to keep her voice calm and steady. "Can you tell me more about him, sweetheart? What does he look like?" Liam shook his head, pulling the covers up to his chin. "I can't see him very well. It's dark, but I hear him sometimes, and I feel like someone's watching me." Jenny's maternal instincts warred with her desire not to frighten Liam further. She sat down on the edge of his bed, gathering him into her arms. "It's okay, baby. You're safe. I'm here, and I won't let anything happen to you." As she held her son close, feeling his small body tremble against hers, Jenny's mind raced. Was this just a product of Liam's imagination, a nightmare that had seemed too real? Or was there something more sinister at play? "How long has this been happening, Liam?" she asked gently. "A few nights," he mumbled into her shoulder. "I was scared to tell you. I thought you might not believe me." Jenny's heart clenched at the thought that her son had been suffering in silence. "Oh, sweetheart, you can always tell me anything. I will always believe you and do everything I can to help you. Promise me, you'll tell me right away if you see or hear anything strange again, okay?" Liam nodded, his grip on her loosening slightly. "Okay, Mom. I promise." Jenny stayed with Liam until he fell asleep, singing soft lullabies and stroking his hair. As his breathing evened out and his features relaxed in sleep, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over her. She checked the locks on Liam's window, making sure it was securely fastened. She looked out into the backyard, searching for any sign of disturbance. But the night was still and quiet. Everything seemed normal. And yet, as Jenny made her way to her own bedroom, her mind churned with questions. Was there really someone coming into Liam's room at night? Or was this a manifestation of some deeper fear or anxiety her son was experiencing? She thought about the changes in their lives over the past year, the divorce from Liam's father, the move to a new house, Liam starting at a new school. Any one of these things could be causing him stress or fear. But the specificity of his claim, "He comes to my room at night," sent a chill down Jenny's spine. Settling into her own bed, Jenny made a silent vow. Whatever was causing Liam's fear, whether real or imagined, she would get to the bottom of it. She would protect her son, no matter what. As she drifted off into an uneasy sleep, Jenny's last thoughts were of Liam. She hoped that in the light of day, his fears would seem less substantial. But deep down, she knew that this was just the beginning of a mystery that would test her in ways she never expected. The days following Liam's late-night confession were a blur of anxiety and sleepless nights for Jenny. Every creak of the house settling, every shadow cast by passing headlights, sent her heart racing. She found herself constantly checking on Liam, peering into his room at all hours of the night, searching for any sign of the mysterious visitor her son had mentioned. During the day, Jenny tried to maintain a sense of normalcy for Liam's sake. She packed his lunch, helped him with his homework, and listened to his stories about school with a smile plastered on her face. But beneath the surface, her mind was in turmoil. Maybe it was just a nightmare, she murmured to herself as she stirred a pot of spaghetti sauce, Liam's favorite dinner. Kids have vivid imaginations, right? It doesn't have to mean anything. But even as she tried to rationalize Liam's words, Jenny couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. She noticed subtle changes in her son's behavior that set off alarm bells in her mind. Liam, usually an energetic ball of excitement, seemed subdued. He was less interested in playing outside, preferring to stay close to Jenny whenever possible. And bedtime, once a peaceful routine, had become a nightly struggle. "Please, Mom, can't I sleep in your room tonight?" Liam pleaded, his blue eyes wide with fear as Jenny tucked him in. Jenny's heart ached at the sight of her son's distress. "Sweetheart, you're safe here in your own room. Remember, I'm just down the hall if you need me." But as she turned out the light and closed Liam's door, leaving it open just a crack the way he liked it, Jenny felt a wave of guilt wash over her. Was she doing the right thing? Should she be taking Liam's fears more seriously? That night, like many nights before, Jenny found herself unable to sleep. She lay in bed, ears straining for any unusual sound, any indication that someone might be in the house. Around 2 a.m., she got up and crept down the hallway to Liam's room. Peeking inside, she saw Liam curled up in a tight ball under his covers, his favorite stuffed dinosaur clutched tightly to his chest. The room was still and quiet, no sign of any intruder. And yet, as Jenny watched her son sleep, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She noticed the window was slightly open. Had she forgotten to close it earlier? And there were what looked like muddy scuff marks on the windowsill. Jenny's heart began to race. Could someone have actually been entering through the window? No, she told herself firmly. That's ridiculous. We're on the second floor. There's no way someone could be climbing in without us noticing. But as she closed the window and wiped away the marks, Jenny couldn't help but wonder if she was missing something important. Was there a logical explanation for all of this, or was her son really in danger? The next day, over breakfast, Jenny tried to gently probe for more information. "Liam, honey, can you tell me more about the person you think comes to your room? What does he do?" Liam pushed his cereal around in his bowl, not meeting Jenny's eyes. He just stands there, watching. Sometimes I think I hear him whispering, but I can't understand what he's saying. Jenny felt a chill run down her spine. "And you're sure it's not just a dream? Or maybe shadows from the tree outside your window?" Liam shook his head emphatically. "No, Mom, it's real. I know it is." As she watched her son head off to school that morning, his small shoulders hunched under the weight of his backpack, Jenny made a decision. She couldn't keep dismissing Liam's fears. Even if there wasn't really someone coming into his room at night, the fear itself was real enough to be affecting her son deeply. That afternoon, Jenny called a child psychologist, Dr. Samantha Rivers, and made an appointment for Liam. Maybe talking to a professional would help uncover what was really going on. But even as she took this step, Jenny couldn't shake the nagging feeling that she was missing something crucial. The open window, the scuff marks, Liam's unwavering insistence that someone was coming to his room, it all added up to a mystery that she was determined to solve. As she went about her day, Jenny's mind kept returning to Liam's words. "He comes to my room at night?" What if, she thought with a growing sense of dread, what if it wasn't just a child's imagination running wild? What if there really was someone out there, someone who meant harm to her precious son? The thought was almost too terrifying to contemplate. But as night fell, and Jenny once again found herself checking and double-checking the locks on all the doors and windows, she knew she couldn't ignore the possibility any longer. Something was happening in her home, under cover of darkness, and she was determined to get to the bottom of it, for Liam's sake, and for her own peace of mind. The soft glow of the computer screen illuminated Jenny's face as she scrolled through yet another article on childhood fears and anxiety. It was well past midnight, but sleep eluded her, as it had for many nights now. The house was quiet, save for the gentle hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of settling wood. A muffled sound from down the hall caught Jenny's attention. She paused, listening intently. There it was again. A soft whimper coming from Liam's room. Heart racing, Jenny hurried down the hallway. She eased Liam's door open, half expecting to see the mysterious figure her son had described. Instead, she found Liam tossing fitfully in his sleep, his face scrunched up in distress. "Shh, it's okay, baby," Jenny murmured, gently stroking Liam's hair. "Mommy's here. You're safe." Liam's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glazed with sleep. "Oh, he was here again. Mom," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I saw him." Jenny felt a chill run down her spine. "It's okay, sweetheart. It was just a dream. Look around, there's no one here but us." But even as she spoke the reassuring words, Jenny's eyes were scanning the room, taking in details she might have missed before. The window, she noticed, was open a crack. Hadn't she closed it earlier? And there, on the white-painted windowsill, were several dark smudges that looked disturbingly like muddy footprints. Trying to keep her voice calm, Jenny tucked Liam back in. "Try to go back to sleep, honey. I'm going to stay here for a while and make sure everything's okay." Once Liam had drifted off again, Jenny approached the window. Her hands shook slightly as she examined the smudges. They were definitely new. She would have noticed them during her cleaning frenzy earlier in the week. And they did look unsettlingly like someone had stepped on the windowsill. But that was impossible, wasn't it? They were on the second floor. There was no way someone could be climbing in without leaving more obvious signs. And yet, Jenny's mind raced back to all the unexplained noises she'd heard over the past few weeks, the times she'd found things slightly out of place and dismissed it as her own forgetfulness. Could there be a connection? Determined to find answers, Jenny began a thorough search of Liam's room. She checked under the bed, in the closet, behind the curtains, anywhere someone might potentially hide. She found nothing out of the ordinary, but the uneasy feeling in the pit of her stomach only grew. As she was about to leave the room, a glint of something metallic caught her eye. There, partially hidden behind Liam's bookshelf, was a small silver object. Jenny's breath caught in her throat as she reached for it. It was a cufflink, an expensive-looking one, with an intricate design etched into its surface. Jenny was certain it didn't belong to anyone in their family. So how had it ended up in Liam's room? The implications of this discovery sent Jenny's mind reeling. Could Liam have been telling the truth all along? Was someone really coming into his room at night? Jenny's first instinct was to wake Liam, to demand more information about the mysterious nighttime visitor. But as she looked at her son's peaceful sleeping face, she hesitated. If there really was an intruder, she didn't want to frighten Liam any more than he already was. No, she needed to handle this carefully. With shaking hands, Jenny took out her phone and snapped several pictures of the cufflink and the smudges on the windowsill. Then, moving as quietly as she could, she went to check the rest of the house. Every shadow seemed menacing as Jenny moved from room to room, checking locks and peering into corners. She found no further evidence of an intruder, but the cufflink in Liam's room was damning enough. As the first light of dawn began to filter through the windows, Jenny sat at the kitchen table, her untouched cup of coffee growing cold before her. She had a decision to make. Should she call the police? But what if she was overreacting? What if there was a perfectly innocent explanation for everything? The memory of Liam's frightened face flashed through her mind. No, she couldn't take that chance. Whatever was going on, she needed to get to the bottom of it. Her son's safety was at stake. With a deep breath, Jenny reached for her phone. But before she could dial, a thought struck her. The security camera. The one she'd installed in the backyard just a few months ago. Its lens pointed directly at the area beneath Liam's window. If someone had been entering through that window, the camera would have caught it. With a surge of hope, Jenny rushed to her laptop. The footage from the past few nights might hold the key to unraveling this mystery once and for all. As she pulled up the security app, Jenny's heart pounded in her chest. Whatever she was about to see, she knew it would change everything. For better or worse, she was about to discover the truth behind the shadows that had been haunting her son's nights. Jenny's fingers flew across the keyboard, navigating through the security camera's interface with a sense of urgency she'd never felt before. The app loaded painfully slowly, each passing second feeling like an eternity, as Jenny's mind raced with possibilities of what she might discover. Finally, the footage from the past week appeared on the screen. Jenny's eyes darted to the timestamp, scrolling back to 4 nights ago. The first night Liam had mentioned the mysterious visitor. She hit play, her breath catching in her throat as she watched the mundane events of the evening unfold in grainy black and white. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary at first. The backyard was still, the only movement coming from leaves rustling in the gentle night breeze. Jenny fast-forwarded through hours of uneventful footage, her eyes straining for any sign of movement. And then she saw it. At precisely 2:17 a.m., a shadow appeared at the edge of the frame. Jenny's heart leapt into her throat as she watched a dark figure move stealthily across the yard, heading directly for the area beneath Liam's window. "Oh my God," Jenny whispered, her hand covering her mouth in shock. "It's real. It's all real." She watched, horrified, as the figure lingered by the house for several minutes before disappearing from view. The timestamp showed 2:23 a.m. when the shadow reappeared, moving quickly back across the yard and out of the camera's range. With trembling hands, Jenny rewound the footage and played it again, and then a third time. Each viewing confirmed her worst fears. Someone had indeed been coming to their house in the dead of night. Forcing herself to remain calm, Jenny checked the footage from the following nights. The pattern was the same. The figure appeared around 2 a.m. each night, staying for approximately 5 to 10 minutes before vanishing again. As she stared at the frozen image of the shadowy intruder on her screen, Jenny felt a mix of emotions wash over her. Fear, certainly. The realization that a stranger had been so close to her sleeping child was terrifying. But there was also a sense of vindication. Liam had been telling the truth all along, and she had doubted him. "I'm so sorry, baby," Jenny murmured, glancing towards Liam's room. "I should have believed you from the start." The weight of her discovery pressed down on Jenny, making it hard to breathe. She knew she needed to act quickly, but the enormity of the situation left her momentarily paralyzed. What should she do first? Call the police? Wake Liam? Set up additional security measures? As if in answer to her unspoken questions, a soft thud from upstairs jolted Jenny back to reality. Her maternal instincts kicked in, overriding her fear. Without a second thought, she was on her feet and racing up the stairs, her heart pounding in her ears. She burst into Liam's room, half expecting to find the shadowy figure looming over her son's bed. Instead, she found Liam sitting up, his eyes wide with fear. "Mom," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I heard something. I think he's here." Jenny rushed to Liam's side, gathering him into her arms. "It's okay, sweetie. I'm here now. Nothing's going to hurt you." As she held her trembling son, Jenny's mind raced. She knew she couldn't ignore the evidence any longer. The security footage, combined with Liam's consistent claims and her own unsettling discoveries, painted a clear picture. Someone was targeting their home, and more specifically, Liam's room. "Liam, honey," Jenny said, trying to keep her voice calm and steady. "I need you to be very brave for me right now. Can you do that?" Liam nodded, his small face set with determination despite his fear. "Good boy," Jenny smiled, running a hand through his tousled hair. "We're going to go downstairs and make an important phone call. Then we're going to lock all the doors and windows and wait together. Can you help me do that?" Again, Liam nodded, his trust in his mother evident in his eyes. Jenny led Liam downstairs, her arm protectively around his shoulders. She sat him on the couch, wrapping him in a soft blanket before reaching for her phone. With a deep breath to steady herself, she dialed 911. "911, what's your emergency?" The dispatcher's voice was calm and professional. "Hello, my name is Jenny Thompson. I'm calling because I believe someone has been breaking into my house at night, specifically my son's room." Jenny's voice shook slightly as she relayed the events of the past few weeks, including her discovery of the security footage. The dispatcher listened attentively, asking clarifying questions and assuring Jenny that officers were being dispatched to her location immediately. "Ma'am, I need you to stay on the line with me until the officers arrive," the dispatcher instructed. Have you secured all doors and windows? I'm doing that now, Jenny replied, moving through the house with Liam close behind her. She double-checked every lock, drew all the curtains, and turned on every light in the house. As they waited for the police to arrive, Jenny held Liam close on the couch. She could feel his small body trembling against hers, and she wished more than anything that she could take away his fear. "Mom," Liam whispered, his voice muffled against her shoulder. "Is the bad man going to come back?" Jenny's heart clenched at the fear in her son's voice. "No, sweetie," she said firmly. "The police are coming to help us. They're going to make sure we're safe." As if on cue, the sound of sirens pierced the night air, growing louder as they approached the house. Jenny felt a wave of relief wash over her at the sound. "See?" she said to Liam, managing a smile. "Help is here. Everything's going to be okay now." The flashing lights of the police cars illuminated the living room through the gaps in the curtains. Jenny stood, still holding Liam close, as a knock sounded at the door. "Police! Mrs. Thompson, are you there?" Jenny moved to the door, checking through the peephole before opening it. 2 officers stood on her porch, their expressions serious but reassuring. As Jenny ushered them inside, she felt a mix of emotions: relief that help had arrived, lingering fear from the night's events, and a steely determination to get to the bottom of this mystery and ensure her son's safety. Little did she know, the truth behind the mysterious nighttime visitor would turn out to be far different from anything she had imagined. The next few hours passed in a blur for Jenny. The living room, usually a place of comfort and family gatherings, had transformed into a hub of police activity. Officers moved efficiently through the house, dusting for fingerprints, examining the window in Liam's room, and poring over the security footage Jenny had discovered. Jenny sat on the couch, Liam curled up against her side, his dinosaur plushie clutched tightly to his chest. She answered the officers' questions as best she could, recounting every detail of the past few weeks: Liam's initial confession, the changes in his behavior, the open window, the muddy scuff marks, and finally, the damning security footage. "And you're certain you've never seen this figure before?" Detective Sarah Reeves asked, her keen eyes studying Jenny's face. Jenny shook her head. "No, never. We've only lived here for about a year, and I don't know many of our neighbors yet." Detective Reeves nodded, jotting something down in her notebook. "Mrs. Thompson, I know this is difficult, but I need to ask, is there anyone you can think of who might want to harm you or your son? An ex-partner, perhaps?" Jenny felt a chill run down her spine at the implication. "No, absolutely not. Liam's father and I divorced amicably, and he lives on the other side of the country now. There's no one I can think of who would do something like this." As the detective continued her questioning, Jenny noticed Liam growing increasingly agitated. His small body trembled against hers, and she could see tears welling up in his eyes. "Detective," Jenny interrupted gently, "would it be all right if I put Liam to bed? It's well past his bedtime, and I think all of this is overwhelming for him." Detective Reeves' expression softened as she looked at the frightened child. "Of course, Mrs. Thompson. We can continue our discussion once he's settled." Jenny led Liam upstairs, acutely aware of the police officer following at a discreet distance, a precaution, she realized, in case the intruder was still somehow in the house. The thought made her shudder. As she tucked Liam into her own bed, there was no way she was letting him sleep alone tonight. Jenny tried to find the right words to comfort her son. "Liam, honey," she began, smoothing his hair back from his forehead. "I know tonight has been scary, but I want you to know how proud I am of you. You were so brave to tell me about the man in your room, even when you were afraid I might not believe you." Liam's lower lip trembled. "You do believe me now, don't you, Mom?" Jenny's heart clenched. "Oh, sweetheart, of course I do. I'm so sorry I didn't understand at first, but I promise you, we're going to figure this out. The police are here to help us, and I'm not going to let anything bad happen to you." She stayed with Liam until he drifted off into an uneasy sleep, then made her way back downstairs. The living room was quieter now, most of the officers having departed to continue their investigation elsewhere. Only Detective Reeves remained, along with a younger officer who was examining the security camera footage on Jenny's laptop. "Mrs. Thompson," Detective Reeves said as Jenny entered the room, "Officer Chen here has been analyzing the footage you provided. We'd like you to take a look at something." Jenny approached the laptop, her heart racing. Had they identified the intruder? Officer Chen manipulated the video, zooming in on the shadowy figure. "Mrs. Thompson, we've enhanced the image as much as possible. Does this shape look familiar to you at all?" Jenny leaned in, squinting at the grainy image. There was something about the way the figure moved, something almost rhythmic. She shook her head, unsure of what she was seeing. "I'm not sure," she admitted. "It's still so dark and blurry." Detective Reeves and Officer Chen exchanged a glance. "Mrs. Thompson," the detective said gently, "we have a theory about what might be happening here. But before we discuss it, I'd like to ask you and Officer Chen to step outside with me for a moment." Puzzled and slightly alarmed, Jenny followed the officers out onto her front porch. The cool night air helped clear her head, which had been fuzzy with fear and lack of sleep. "Now," Detective Reeves said, gesturing towards the side of the house, "I'd like you to look at the area below your son's window. What do you see?" Jenny obediently looked. "This doesn't invalidate your concerns or the fear you and Liam have been experiencing." Jenny felt a mix of confusion and the first stirrings of embarrassment. "What are you saying, Detective?" With a compassionate smile, Detective Reeves began to explain their theory, and as she spoke, Jenny felt her world shift once again. Jenny listened in stunned silence as Detective Reeves laid out the police's theory about the mysterious nighttime visitor. With each word, she felt a complex mixture of emotions wash over her: relief, embarrassment, and a touch of lingering doubt. "You see, Mrs. Thompson," Detective Reeves explained gently, "when we examined the security footage more closely, we noticed a pattern in the movement of the figure. It wasn't the erratic movement of a person, but rather the steady, rhythmic swaying of a tree branch." Officer Chen chimed in, his voice kind. "The large tree next to your house? Its branches extend quite close to Liam's window. In the right light, especially on a windy night, those branches could cast shadows that might look like a person moving around." Jenny's mind reeled as she processed this information. Could it really be that simple? Had all their fear and worry been over nothing more than a trick of light and shadow? "But," Jenny protested weakly, "what about the open window? The muddy marks on the sill?" Detective Reeves nodded understandingly. "We've looked into that as well. The window latch appears to be a bit loose. It's possible that a strong gust of wind could have pushed it open. As for the marks..." She trailed off, glancing at Officer Chen. The young officer cleared his throat. "Mrs. Thompson, we noticed some muddy sneakers in your son's room. The tread pattern matches the marks on the windowsill perfectly." Jenny's eyes widened as realization dawned. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Liam's been sneaking out to play in the backyard at night. That's why he's been so tired in the mornings." A wave of relief washed over Jenny, so powerful it nearly brought her to her knees. There was no intruder, no sinister figure stalking her son. Just a little boy's overactive imagination and a mother's protective instincts gone into overdrive. And yet, a small part of her still hesitated. "But Liam was so sure," she said. "He really believed someone was coming into his room." Detective Reeves placed a comforting hand on Jenny's shoulder. "Children have vivid imaginations, Mrs. Thompson. Once the idea took hold, it's likely that every shadow, every creak of the house settling, became part of the story in Liam's mind, and your own worry probably reinforced his fears." Jenny nodded slowly, feeling a mix of relief and guilt. She had let her own fears spiral out of control, potentially making Liam's anxiety even worse in the process. "What do I do now?" she asked, suddenly feeling lost. "How do I explain this to Liam?" "With patience and understanding," Detective Reeves advised. "Liam's fears were very real to him, even if the threat wasn't. It's important to validate his feelings, while also reassuring him that he's safe." As the police prepared to leave, Promising to file a full report and follow up if needed, Jenny thanked them profusely for their time and understanding. She watched their patrol cars drive away, the flashing lights fading into the distance, before turning back to her quiet house. She made her way upstairs, pausing outside her bedroom where Liam slept. Peering in, she saw his small form curled up under the blankets, his breathing deep and even. In sleep, his face was peaceful, free from the fear that had haunted him for weeks. Jenny's heart swelled with love and a renewed determination. Tomorrow, she would talk to Liam. They would face this together, dispelling the shadows of fear with the light of understanding and love. And perhaps, she mused as she slipped into bed beside her son, they would both learn an important lesson about the power of imagination and the importance of open communication. As Jenny drifted off to sleep, her mind already formulating plans for thicker curtains and tree trimming, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. The mystery was solved, the danger non-existent. Now, the real work of healing and moving forward could begin. The warm morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting a gentle glow across the bedroom. Jenny stirred, momentarily disoriented to find herself in her own bed rather than Liam's room, where she'd spent so many anxious nights recently. The events of the previous night came rushing back, and she turned to see Liam still fast asleep beside her, his face peaceful in the morning light. As she watched her son sleep, Jenny's mind raced with thoughts of how to approach the conversation they needed to have. How could she explain the situation in a way that would ease Liam's fears without making him feel foolish for being scared? A soft mumble and the rustling of sheets signaled Liam's awakening. His blue eyes blinked open, focusing on Jenny with a mix of sleepiness and lingering anxiety. "Morning, sweetie," Jenny said softly, brushing a lock of hair from Liam's forehead. "How did you sleep?" Liam yawned, snuggling closer to his mother. "Okay, I guess. Is the bad man gone?" Jenny took a deep breath, steeling herself for the conversation ahead. "Liam, honey, we need to talk about that. But first, I want you to know how proud I am of you for being so brave and for telling me about what was scaring you. That was the right thing to do." Liam nodded, his eyes wide and attentive. "The police officers who came last night, they helped us figure out what's been happening," Jenny continued. "And it turns out, there wasn't actually a bad man coming into your room." Liam's brow furrowed in confusion. "But I saw him. Mom, I heard him." Jenny nodded understandingly. "I know you did, sweetie, and those things you saw and heard were real. But sometimes, our minds can play tricks on us, especially at night when it's dark and quiet." She went on to explain, in terms Liam could understand, about the tree branch casting shadows, and how the wind could make sounds that might seem scary in the dark. As she spoke, she could see the wheels turning in Liam's mind, processing this new information. "So, it was just a tree?" Liam asked, his voice a mixture of relief and disbelief. Jenny smiled gently. "Yes, honey, just a tree and some shadows. But that doesn't mean your feelings weren't real. Being scared is okay, and I'm so glad you told me about it." Liam was quiet for a moment. Then a small giggle escaped him. "We were scared of a tree. Mom!" Jenny couldn't help but laugh along with him, feeling the tension of the past weeks start to dissipate. "We sure were. I guess we both let our imaginations run a little wild, huh?" As their laughter subsided, Jenny pulled Liam into a tight hug. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you at first, sweetie. From now on, I promise to always listen to you and take your feelings seriously. Okay?" Liam nodded against her shoulder. "I promise to always tell you when I'm scared too, Mom." The rest of the day was spent in a flurry of activity. Jenny and Liam worked together to monster-proof his room, a process that involved rearranging furniture, hanging thicker curtains to block out the tree's shadow, and even giving the closet a thorough inspection to prove there were no monsters hiding inside. As they worked, Jenny took the opportunity to address another important issue. "Liam," she said, trying to keep her tone light, "the police also noticed some muddy footprints on your windowsill. Do you know anything about that?" Liam's cheeks flushed red, and he looked down at his feet. I I've been going outside sometimes at night, he admitted in a small voice. I'm sorry, Mom. I know I'm not supposed to. Jenny knelt down to Liam's level, meeting his eyes. Thank you for being honest with me, sweetie. Can you tell me why you were going outside? Liam's lower lip trembled slightly. Sometimes I couldn't sleep. I thought maybe if I played outside for a little bit, I'd get tired. And I wanted to prove I wasn't scared of the dark. Jenny's heart ached at her son's confession. She pulled him into a hug, stroking his hair gently. Oh, Liam, it's okay to be scared sometimes. Everyone gets scared, even grown-ups, but sneaking out at night can be very dangerous. Promise me you won't do that again, okay? If you're having trouble sleeping, you can always come to me. Liam nodded solemnly. I promise, Mom. I'm sorry. As the day wore on, Jenny could see Liam becoming more relaxed and cheerful. The dark circles under his eyes, which had been a constant feature for weeks, began to fade. By bedtime, he was almost back to his usual energetic self. That night, as Jenny tucked Liam into his own bed for the first time in days, she could sense a change in the atmosphere of the room. The oppressive fear that had hung in the air was gone, replaced by a cozy, safe feeling. How about we start a new bedtime routine? Jenny suggested, settling into the chair next to Liam's bed. I could read you a story, and then we could talk about our favorite parts of the day. Would you like that? Liam's face lit up. Yeah, can we start tonight? Jenny smiled, reaching for one of Liam's favorite books. As she began to read, she felt a deep sense of peace settle over her. The mystery that had consumed their lives for weeks had turned out to be nothing more than shadows and imagination. But the experience had taught them both valuable lessons about communication, trust, and the importance of facing their fears together. As Liam drifted off to sleep, his breathing deep and even, Jenny found herself reflecting on the events of the past few weeks. She realized that while the threat hadn't been real, the fear and anxiety they had experienced were genuine. Moving forward, she vowed to create an environment where Liam always felt safe sharing his worries and concerns, no matter how big or small. In the days and weeks that followed, Jenny noticed a marked change in both Liam and herself. Liam's nightmares became less frequent, and when they did occur, he was quick to seek comfort rather than suffering in silence. Jenny, for her part, found herself more attuned to Liam's moods and more patient in addressing his concerns. They also took practical steps to prevent similar misunderstandings in the future. Jenny had the loose window latch fixed and arranged for the overhanging tree branches to be trimmed back. She and Liam worked together to create a worry box where he could write down his fears and concerns, which they would then address together. The experience had been frightening and stressful, but it had also brought them closer as a family. They had faced a challenge together and come out stronger for it. As Jenny watched Liam laughing and playing in the backyard, no longer afraid of the shadows cast by the trees, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. Their ordeal had taught them both important lessons about the power of imagination, the importance of open communication, and the strength that comes from facing fears together. These were lessons that would serve them well in the years to come, helping to build a foundation of trust and understanding that would weather any storm. As the summer days lengthened into fall, the memory of the nighttime visitor faded, replaced by new adventures and challenges. But Jenny would always remember those weeks of fear and uncertainty as a turning point in her relationship with Liam, a time when they learned to truly listen to and support each other, no matter how unlikely the threat might seem. In the end, what had started as a terrifying mystery had become a powerful reminder of the bond between a mother and her child, and the incredible resilience of the human spirit when faced with the unknown.
Disclaimer: this channel does not support or tolerate any form of discrimination, racism, prejudice, or violation of human rights. The stories presented here are original and created by the author with the aim of promoting reflection, awareness, and dialogue. All content is developed with respect for diversity and the dignity of all people.